Okay. For those who are still coming in, we're going to wait for another minute before we start the event. So just take a minute to get comfortable, and we'll be starting here in just a minute. Thank you. All right, everyone. Good morning and good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Karen. I am the Managing Director of the U.S. Campaign for Burma. Welcome to the Rohingya Genocide Commemoration, a time for reflection, inclusivity, and solidarity. Co-sponsored by the Burmese Rohingya Organization UK, Global Justice Center, No Business with Genocide, International Campaign for the Rohingya, Campaign for New Myanmar, UUSC, and USCB. On the eve of the Rohingya Genocide anniversary, we are here today to not only remember the lives lost during the 2017 genocide, but also those who have suffered for decades under the military junta, and those who are currently being targeted today post-coup. We, the advocacy community, often call for unity and solidarity from the international community as we advocate for the people of Burma. Today, we will look at the policies and provisions that are currently in place that have yet to be utilized, as well as the significance of the ICJ and Argentinian cases for the Rohingya and the ethnic communities. Before we dive into our panel discussion, Special Rapporteur Tom Andrews provided a special video message for our event today.
It is an honor to participate in this important event marking the 6th anniversary of the genocidal attacks against the Rohingya in Myanmar. Rohingya Genocide Commemoration, a time for reflection, inclusivity, and solidarity. The Rohingya were attacked by the Myanmar military, not because of anything that they had done, but because of who they are and the God they pray to. Over the 6 years since these horrific attacks, Rohingya leaders and advocates have worked tirelessly for justice, accountability, and for the safety and sustainability of the Rohingya community, who continue to be denied fundamental rights and continue to face terrible hardships. All too often, these leaders and advocates have faced denial and indifference by those who are in positions to make a difference, government officials who have all too often been content to issue vacuous statements or vote for resolutions that have no consequences. Let me be frank. The members of the Rohingya community who I have spoken with are tired of empty promises. Their children cannot eat political rhetoric or countless UN resolutions that go nowhere. I agree that this Rohingya Genocide Commemoration should be a time for reflection, inclusivity, and solidarity. But it should also be a time for action. Action that can make a genuine difference for the besieged Rohingya community. Action that holds government leaders to account for not holding those responsible for a genocide to account. An action that demands that the Rohingya community, who have suffered so much, be provided the sustainable support that they and their children need and deserve. It has been 6 years, and the international community has yet to take effective, strategic, and coordinated action against those who are responsible for the Rohingya genocide, the Myanmar military. Indeed, the senior general who commanded these forces, who committed these genocidal attacks, is now commanding forces that are committing probable war crimes and crimes against humanity throughout Myanmar. As I have argued before the UN Human Rights Council and General Assembly, it is imperative that Min Aung Hlaing and his collaborators and enablers be denied the three things that sustain their atrocities: money, weapons, and legitimacy, and that he and they face justice. I believe that it is past time for the UN Security Council to consider, debate, and vote on a resolution that imposes sanctions and an arms embargo on the military junta, while referring them to the International Criminal Court to face justice. Such a resolution will almost certainly face a veto in the Security Council, but I nevertheless believe that the Rohingya need and deserve to have this debate in the Security Council, and that the members of the Council should be required to cast their votes and explain their votes before the world. But strong, effective action does not require passage of a UN Security Council resolution. Those nations who support justice, human rights, and accountability for the Rohingya, and all those who are under siege in Myanmar, have an opportunity and, I believe, an obligation to form a working coalition to take strong, coordinated action that will deny the military of Myanmar what it requires to sustain itself. What is missing is not a lack of knowledge of what can and should be done, but the political will to get it done. Let us commemorate the 6th anniversary of the Rohingya genocide by honoring those who lost their lives in that horror, saluting and thanking Rohingya leaders and advocates who are on the front lines of this struggle, and by committing ourselves to inclusivity, solidarity, and the action necessary for justice, human rights, and hope to prevail. Thank you.
Thank you to Special Rapporteur Tom Andrews for sharing that special video message. As we move to introduce our speakers, please type your questions in the Q&A box, which can be found at the top of your screen. If you wish to direct it to a specific person, please feel free to add their name. One of our colleagues will be collecting the questions for the Q&A. Thank you. We are grateful to have these prominent speakers here with us today. Sung Kin is president of the Burmese Rohingya Organization UK. Nasser Sir is an advocacy initiative advisor for the Women's League of Burma and the advocacy director for the Karen Women's Organization. Akila Radhakrishnan is the president of the Global Justice Center. Our moderator this morning will be Rachel Gorfried. She is the vice president of programs at UUSC. Rachel, if you may.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all for being with us today on this moment of reflection. I know that for many, this is a hard moment, and as we look back over 6 years, and there's another story to tell about the organizing and the incredible, powerful global movement of activists who've been working across borders to challenge the oppression that is happening in Burma. And many of them are with us this morning. I'm really honored to be able to facilitate this conversation. And I hope you all see the incredible strength and power of folks organizing across borders to support the Rohingya, to claim justice and accountability, and to assert their rights. I'm going to start with some questions, but please, as Karen mentioned, populate them in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to those questions. sort of in the second half of our panel today. The first question is going to be for you, Tun Kin. On the eve of the Rohingya Genocide Commemoration, what reflections do you want to share with us today? And what challenges can you share with us are currently facing Rohingya in the camps? And Tun Kin, I just want to remind you to unmute yourself. Thanks so much.
First of all, thank you very much hosting very timely event, and thank you to U.S. Campaign for Burma and USC hosting this event. It's very timely. It's commemoration of 6th anniversary. Today we are having this event. As you all know, in August 2017, the attacks to the Rohingya that mounted to genocide. Thousands of our Rohingya brothers and sisters were killed. 800,000 Rohingya were forced to flee across the border to Bangladesh. But the genocide did not start on August 25, 2017. It started with anti-Rohingya policies long before depriving Rohingya of citizenship and fundamental human rights. One attack against Rohingya was stepped up in 2012 and 13. Rather than punishing the perpetrators, international community turned a blind eye and lifted sanctions. As multiple reports from Burmese Rohingya organization UK have shown, which I'm leading, that genocide against Rohingya is ongoing. Inside Burma, some 600,000 Rohingya live in a de facto open air prison. Rohingyas are largely confined to their villages, unable to go to the hospital, schools, or to seek employment. On 14th May this year, Cyclone Mocha struck Myanmar's Rakhine State, leaving a trail of destruction. Our organization have documented circumstances which led to preventable deaths of hundreds of Rohingya in Cyclone Mocha in the context of ongoing Rohingya genocide. Hundreds of Rohingya have been killed and injured after Rohingya were left behind in internment camps in Rakhine State. To date, the junta continues to block vital humanitarian aid from reaching impacted Rohingya communities. In the context of regime's policies of persecution towards the Rohingya, what United Nations describes as waiting for access is genocide right in front of our eyes. In the refugee camps in Bangladesh, where around 1 million Rohingyas are now live, Rohingyas are living in squalid, inhumane conditions, made worse by recent aid cards by the international community. This is indefensible. The world is living genocide, victims to starve. Again and again, we hear from our brothers and sisters from Rohingya dying in the camp, preventable deaths, and through landslides and fires, and being killed by criminal gangs that are allowed to terrorize the refugees. The security and the dignity of Rohingya refugees are not being protected. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tun Kin. I'm wondering, Nasser, sir, if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges that other ethnic groups face as well.
Yes. Firstly, thank you for the organizer that invite me and also let me to join the sixth memorial of the Rohingya genocide. It reminded us that we need to, do more and push more for our justice and accountability on that, include for the other ethnic city as well. So the currently in the most of the ethnic area. So as you may already aware, so more than 7 decades have faced a civil war, and also there's a lot of impact on the many different classes of the community, include women's and pregnant women and newborn baby mother that faces many difficulties and many challenges during their running or during their relocate or became IDP. So since the coup, ongoing armed conflict caused the breakdown of the democratic governance, health and education system, communication and transport while destroying crops and other means of livelihood. Thus, increases economic insecurity and property. Ongoing fighting means widespread rock blocks, extortion, and arbitrary taxation routes resulted in increasing price of the household commodities and food. There is lack of the qualified medical care and medicines, even for common disease such as cold and flu, malaria and diarrhea, as well as for chronic disease. Private health clinics provide care that is out of reach for most people due to increased property. When women are also dying during childbirth as a result of lack of access to medical care. So we have increased IDP refugee every day. So we see also they have neither paid work or nor other forms of the income, and need to depend on the donation for their survival. While the number of the international donor is decreasing, and also decreased international support has led to food shortage, lack of feminist hygiene supplies, medicine for common disease, and even shelter causes severe survival challenges for displaced people. The majority of displaced people who are women, children, and elderly. So community-based and also women's organizations have effectively taken over some of their state responsibility of providing economic, health, education support, as well as collected the disseminated information about the general and also human rights situation in various parts of the country. And that also we see the women's lack of legal recourse when the suffer gender-based violence because the justice system is failing. Why the military junta is collecting citizens at the moment. So they collect for the 2023 election, but majority do not want to participate in this election, which they perceive as false and unfair. So they are also ready to boycott the election and revolt as well. Some resist by not providing their household information for the election related success. The household list being collected contained information about household members' names, date of birth, occupation, and ethnicity. So if the people who are on the list are missing from the household, so the success takers reportedly interrogate the other household members about where those people have gone and where are they going and what are they doing. So we have seen many difficulty and challenges in this situation, and the airstrike or having fighting happened widespread in the country right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nasser, sir. You know, Akila, I think as we understand some of these issues that Tonkin and Nasser sir are describing, the issues that are facing the Rohingya and the gender inequality in inequity and the way that ethnic groups are dealing with this sort of systematically across the country seem to be part of a larger systemic problem that's happening in the country now. Could you speak to how you see some of those larger structures and policies and how they're preventing accountability and justice in the communities?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me and for organizing this event. It's really, it's great to be with everybody here on kind of a very somber, I think, occasion as we really think about how much has not happened in the 6 years really since the Rohingya genocide. And so thank you again for having me as a part of this conversation. So in answer to your question, yes, absolutely. There's an interconnected thread between the systematic targeting of ethnic groups in Myanmar that goes back decades. Sursur talked about 7 decades of armed conflict targeting ethnic groups. Tun Kin was talking about systematic discriminatory policies against the Rohingya that far predate the genocide itself, thinking about restrictions on citizenship, movement restrictions, or imposition of restrictions around, population control of the Rohingya as a community, thinking about their own, ability to make decisions around family planning and giving birth. And so really there has been a systematic targeting of ethnic groups by, a largely Buddhist military that has gone about a campaign of Burmanization across the country for decades, that has been at the core of military rule in Myanmar. It was at the core, in whatever we call the previous iteration of the junta, and it remains at the core of what is being pursued now by the junta in the wake of the February 2021 coup. It is the underlying thread of everything that is happening in the country. So regardless of the diversity of ethnic groups, whether that's on religious grounds, whether that's on ethnic identity, this is the thread that connects all of them together. And this is the joint struggle that they have all been in together over the last 70 years. And I think that especially since after the coup, we are now starting to see this solidarity and this understanding, solidify a bit more than perhaps it was there in the past. So I think that's one thing that, that's one common thread. The other thing you can often see is that the military has been using the same tactics against ethnic groups. The patterns of war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, the types of actions that make up the core of these crimes are the same. So for example, in the context, the IIM for Myanmar, they found that sexual violence was a hallmark of the Tatmadaw operations, of the Tatmadaw, the way that they conducted the Rohingya genocide, but it was also a hallmark of the way that they conduct their attacks on ethnic communities. And, the Women's League of Burma has long been leading advocacy campaigns to really recognize sexual violence as a weapon of the Tatmadaw and the way that they use it across the different ethnic groups that comprise the Women's League of Burma. And so I think, it's not just in the common goal, the common motivation that drives the Tatmadaw to attack ethnic groups, but it's also in the manner in which they do it. And I think that really this recognition is strengthening the solidarity amongst ethnic groups and ethnic actors as they think about now in the wake of the coup, where do we go forward? How do we build an inclusive federal Burma? And, and I think it's important to say this hasn't always been the case. Certain ethnic groups have certainly been far more aligned and sympathetic to the Rohingya than others. And I think that it's important that we pinpoint and acknowledge that, a part of what happened to the Rohingya, while there's a common pattern, there was a certain level of severity of what happened in the Rohingya genocide that does look a little bit different than other attacks that the army has levied, much of which were, perhaps spread out over a period of time. There was a very concentrated piece of time in 2017 where, a range of horrific actions were taken, and the Rohingya were left on their own largely by a large part of the Burmese population at the time. And so I think, again, it's important to acknowledge that not as a not necessarily just as a condemnation, but to say that what we see now in the solidarity, the recognition of the Rohingya is an important part of moving forward with inclusivity, right? Making sure that everything that happens after this coup and rebuilding the country includes the formal recognition of the Rohingya and the restoration of their rights in a way that perhaps was not always supported by the majority of the population. And so I think that's the other thing, is connecting and understanding that this is a part of the military's goal, the way that they attack, and now you're seeing again how they're attacking the general populace, right? The singular threat here is the military. And so the solidarity is, I think, the response that we really need to see as we move forward, that acknowledges the kind of the common sort of enemy that we're facing and what it takes to move forward from there.
Thank you so much, Akila, for weaving that all together, and to Nasser, Sir, and to Kin for sharing the different threads as well. I think, speaking of solidarity, the next set of questions I'm going to ask are really about the role of the international community over these, not just the last 6 years, but in fact, over decades. So Tun Kin, I'm wondering if you could speak to some of the changes in policies that have impacted this global struggle, including the Rohingya Genocide Determination, the United States government in 2022. And why is it important to the Rohingya to have this, and what are some of the effects and expectations we should have as a global community on what's next?
Yes, thank you. This is very important question. We are looking from concrete, from international, more concrete action, international community on justice and accountability for the Rohingya genocide. Of course, we welcome genocide determination by Secretary of State Blinken, but we need to see concrete action and policy from US government to back that determination up. International communities are still failing to hold military to account for its crime. Militaries are still ignoring provisional measures of the International Court of Justice to prevent ongoing genocide. But the British government is still refusing to even to hold UN Security Council to discuss this. Our organization is calling on the UN Security Council to convene a meeting to discuss non-implementation of International Court of Justice provisional measures. International Court of Justice won't publish the report that Burmese military make to the court. As a Rohingya, we are not allowed to see what the military saying about us. UN Security Council has failed to refer Burma to International Criminal Court. And while the International Criminal Court is supposed to be investigating the crime of deportation to Bangladesh as Rohingya again, we are not told what the progress is being made in this investigation. But in this question, I will talk about it. I want, but we Rohingya brought universal jurisdiction case against Burmese military in Argentina. I will talk about it later anyway.
Thank you, Tun Kin. I actually would like to turn and talk a little bit about the ICJ and Argentina cases that are extremely important in this struggle for international justice and accountability. Nasser, sir, could you speak to the significance of the Rohingya genocide cases and what other sort of international justice developments you're following and tracking related to this?
Thank you so much for the another chance to speak. So actually, our brother and sister from the Rohingya have been tried for the justice and accountability, seeking for justice and accountability, same as other ethnics has been looking for a long times ago. And also what the same of the perpetrator as well. And that also even the victor or survivor has been changed, and it faces different across the country. But the perpetrator are the same groups and the same institute. Since the independent of the Myanmar and until now. So that's why we always say that it is important and also significant for our cooperation with the Rohingya brother and sister for the justice and accountability. So as a Women's League of Burma, we started with the informal exchange or informal discussion with our sister of the Rohingya and come out with the cooperation or joint action sometimes. So now we recently last week we have big event of solidarity for with the Rohingya communities. So this is important for the Burma Myanmar for international justice and accountability to to have a more common evident or common effort for the international justice and accountability. So we had evidence from the many different ethnic that military junta committed the war crimes and the crimes against humanity, as well as the genocide happened across the country right now. So so those things also commit the same from the same perpetrator. So it is important to cooperate and strengthen the case that our brother and sister already bring in the justice system, justice mechanism. So we need also strengthen or push it our effort. The case that Rohingya sister or brother already bring in the court. So we also need to have more solidarity, and we need to have more cooperation on this stage as well as the other ethnics. So in the past, they don't even dare to call the name of the Rohingya, but now they become and understand it a little bit more and more, and also they also seems that, oh yes, this is truth, that they did believe before that it happened, genocide happened in Rohingya. So it happened in the it happened in the other ethnic area. So now, we have seen across the country, so they come in and understand on that a little bit more and more. So we hopefully this understanding also can come out with the fully recognition each other and come out with the common effort for the justice and accountability. So as a Women's League of Burma, we already recognize and we already engage with our brother and sisters, as well as we also support and also always request them to share where they are processed, what's the progress. But we feel we still feel upset that they are still on the state. Nothing happened yet, and also the action also we didn't see yet. So it also remain us to do more and to push more for the justice and accountability. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Nasser, sir. Akila, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to sort of the global and political historical significance of these legal procedures.
Absolutely. So, just kind of taking a step back, right? There was this sort of extraordinary week in November 2019, which is maybe where I'll take us back to, where three things happened all at the same time, right? Brooke at Timken's organization filed a criminal complaint for individual criminal responsibility in Argentina under the theory of universal jurisdiction. That same week, the Gambia filed a case at the International Court of Justice against Myanmar under the Genocide Convention. And the ICC announced that they were opening an investigation into, a sort of specific way of looking at the jurisdiction, but looking at the Rohingya genocide. And so that week was incredibly significant because it was a marked moment that recognized, one, what happened to the Rohingya, and really set forth a series of processes to bring justice and accountability to those experiences. But as Surser has said, this, I think, to me, was also a recognition of the need to break the longstanding impunity that the military has had for decades of violence against its own population, against ethnic groups, against individuals, against the Rohingya. And so you had, I think that is the first historical significance, is that there had been a long battle for justice and accountability. And this was the first spark that some piece of that impunity that has long shielded, and in large part continues to shield, the Tatmadaw will be pierced and broken. And I think that that's important very specifically because, of course, it was what happened to the Rohingya that inspired all of these cases. And that is the legal baseline for these cases. But at the same time, to me, there is historical significance in recognizing that this is the first time that impunity that has been long called out had been actually broken, or a process has started. And so I think that's the first historical significance. And I think it's really important as we think about Myanmar, about how these cases and the Rohingya, who have so long been marginalized, are actually leading the way for justice and accountability for the entire country. And I think that that frame is really important, that we understand it, though. And, it is justice for the entire country. Surser was just saying it is the same individuals who have been committing these crimes. And so, yes, while a legal finding from any one of these cases will pertain specifically to what happened in the context of the Rohingya genocide, unless, there's like a Security Council referral and the ICC case can expand, there is a factual matter there, but from a principled matter, it is holding to account those who have been committing crimes against the entirety of the populace. So I think it's really important that we keep that frame in mind as we assess the importance of these cases. The other thing that I might just want to briefly highlight as well is that what the Argentina and the ICJ cases show is that they showed that the situation in Myanmar and the situation of the Rohingya is one for global concern. Who would think that the Gambia, a small country in West Africa, was the one who was going to stand up and take the country of Myanmar to court? Who would have imagined that in Argentina now proceedings are underway to hold, senior military leadership, potentially to hold them criminally accountable. And so I think it also really helps to highlight the universality of these types of violations and the obligations and the duties as we think about the international system, that they come, of course, through systems like the United Nations. A long-standing call of, groups in Myanmar has been for a Security Council referral for the country. That's something that we've worked on actually with WLB, I think, for over 15 years now as an organization, in terms of that being a call. So, thinking about what that looks like in multilateral institutions, but also thinking about how representative it is that a country in Latin America, that a country in Africa is standing up for the rights and the recognition of justice and accountability for something that happened far away in Asia. And so I think it also really highlights the importance of this thread of understanding that when something like genocide happens, it's of concern to the entire world, and that the entire world, there are actually tools that people can take, and it doesn't always have to be led by the United States or a European nation. The bringers of justice and accountability exist across the world. It's not a global north concept. It's not a global north power structure. And I think that really these cases help to demonstrate the ways in which the entirety of the system can be brought forward to move this larger project of justice and accountability.
Thank you, Akila, for reminding us of the power struggles and the possibility of justice ahead. I'm wondering, Tunkin, I want to talk a little bit about this theme of joint struggle that you all have named. And Tunkin, I'm wondering, inclusivity has been something that's been remarked on in this panel, and how can we remove the military from power and rebuild a more democratic Burma? The political will exists. So how do we do this at this pivotal moment in Burmese history? And what else can we as international community actors do to support the work that you're doing on the ground there?
Yeah, first thing is we have to look at this military committed, crimes since 1962. There is no such way this military should remain in any parts of any political things in Burma. And the military committed the crimes, these crimes, for these crimes, what they committed, we want to see that international, those justice mechanisms need to bring them justice. This is very important. For myself, we can never give up until the justice is done. We will go wherever our plight of justice is hard. We have to work hard. We will continue our hard work. That's why, as I want to point out, Argentina case is part of this determination. Our 2019 complaint was, in principle dismissed. But after battling appeal court after another, Argentinian judiciary open investigation on the Rohingya genocide. So we have brought this universal jurisdiction case against Burmese military in Argentina. We had no concrete knowledge about this kind of principle. The mere idea of filing a complaint in the other side of the world sounded far-fetched, but we quickly caught very essence of universal jurisdiction, and we wanted answers. The case is as alive as ever. Just recently, in June, 7 survivors made extraordinary and historic journey to Rohingya. 1 man, 7 women from the refugee camp in Bangladesh gave in-person testimony in the court in Buenos Aires. Each of them were given all necessary time to describe atrocities committed in their village in August 2017. They offered powerful evidence to the court about the crimes that integrated the genocide plan. They described indiscriminate killings, including infants by fire or stabbing, torture on the spot, simultaneous gang rape of women, looting on torching of village, and forced disappearances of villagers and others. Furthermore, the file has evidence indicating the identities of those responsible of genocide and crime against humanity committed. We believe sooner or later, whatever they are, whatever they do, the perpetrators will hear about the Argentina court. To be precise, the court may issue arrest warrants with the intervention of Interpol. This is the part other jurisdictions around the world will have uphold the justice. We are starting to break the cycle of impunity. We would like to see other countries to do this kind of cases, implementation of legislation that allow universal jurisdiction cases in their countries. So for your answer, what I see is, we have seen that after 2021, many people see that what's happened to the Rohingya. And they have seen, they understood what Rohingya have faced. Many of the people thought that Rohingya burned their own home. And Rohingyas are illegal immigrants. Just through propaganda of Facebook, kill them all. And they are Bengali illegal. And I myself face threatening through Facebook messages. And these are the propaganda of the military. And we have seen that time, National League for Democracy, NLD, they have been, together with the military, defended what's happened to our people. And we have seen 2021 coup after how this military brutality. Unfortunately, we did not get that sympathy from the people around the world. People around the country. In Burma, I mean. But our sympathy towards all our brothers and sisters, because we know how that brutality is. We know how this military killed thousands of Rohingya people, and thousands of Rohingya women were raped and these things. Our hearts and minds are with our Burmese brothers and sisters. Sagainai, Sagaida Basin, Mugweda Basin, Kashina State, Karana State, Shina State, Karania State, other parts of Burma. We know. But one thing is, unitedly, we all are fighting common enemy. That's why I mentioned just now our case in Argentina. This is not only for the Rohingya people. We are together with all the people of Burma. We are fighting to get justice for all brothers and sisters of Burma to get justice, not only Rohingya. So this is very important that we have seen inclusive future federal union of Burma from national unity government. We welcome some positive steps, and we welcome many support from civil society is positive, and also some universities, students have been saying they are apologizing. I got many messages and tweets during 2021. I believe this will continue to understand what's happened to the Rohingyas. And this is the only way. This is our strength to fight against this military. So when we talk about this revolution is not only, to taken down the military. This revolution is not just, the goal defeating the military. We do not want to be pushed into dialogue or compromise with the military. Our country has no future while this military still exists. Our revolution is just, that we must remove the military from the country. Our revolution is what happened next. So this movement, we want to see that about New Burma, where we talk about all other ethnic groups being tolerated, and multi-ethnic cultural country being tolerated, like Rohingya and other minorities, they should get all the rights. So when we talk about here, national unity government, when we the slogan like new inclusive future federal union, Rohingya should be recognized as an ethnic group, because when you talk federal union, because Rohingyas are second largest minority in Rakhine state after Rakhine group. So what will be Rohingya future? And if you talk about future inclusive federal union, so do you recognize Rohingya, restore Rohingya ethnic rights and citizenship rights? We have not seen yet, unfortunately. We want to see concrete, clear policy from national unity government. We have seen that very some welcoming steps, but it's not really, we have to wait and see. Still, we are waiting what's going to be their policy, because we have seen that very good thing that 2008 constitution was abolished, which is the mother of the law in a country, should say. But 1982 citizenship law, which designed to eliminate Rohingya ethnic rights. For example, because of that law, I couldn't go to the university in Burma, even though my grandfather was a member of parliament. Because of that law, I faced those restrictions. Like me, hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas are denying even on restriction because they didn't get the citizenship card. So what on that point, I want to ask national unity government, what is their policy to restore the citizenship rights of the Rohingya? Will they abolish 1982 citizenship law? Why is taking so long if they can abolish 2008 constitution? We have seen recently, the one the Rohingya, our brother, was appointed deputy minister in human rights ministry. These are positive steps, but we have seen Rohingya have ministered during our grandfather's time, 1950s, but they still denied. But we do not want to, of course, these are positive steps. We want to see our Rohingya ethnic group restoring the rights. If someone asks me from the camp, brother, we have seen that one Rohingya is deputy minister, NUG. Is NUG recognized our Rohingya genocide survivors 1 million citizens? I have no answer. Do they recognize what happened to Rohingya genocide? I have no answer. We do not know. So we have to look at very details what, clearly the policy, what national unity government is moving forward, and we're happy to engage. End of the day, with the people of Burma, we Rohingyas are together, fight against this military. We are doing our best to get justice, not only for the Rohingya, all the people of Burma. Our hearts and minds are with them. And we hoping something will move forward from here. So one thing is that without justice, there is no such way we can get anything from the, we must bring this military to bring justice. While we build future of free Burma, Mi Aung Hlaing and his generals, commanders will be in jail, unable to commit such crimes ever again. So let's attain justice. The Bible will feel relief and repaired, and foundation of inclusive and peaceful Myanmar will be laid one day, I hope. Thank you. I stop here.
Thank you so much, Chun Kin. Those threads that you've woven for us are really powerful and inspiring, and the conviction of which you speak to it, quite moving. So thank you for speaking from the heart. And I believe we will be there. We will get there. So I just want to turn a little bit more to understanding sort of I'm going to ask Nasser, sir, can you speak a little bit about sort of the social cohesion and work that you're doing on the ground, organizing within and amongst ethnic groups in Burma, and how we as an international community might think more inclusively about this struggle and context?
Yes, thank you so much. For the people in the Burma, that we have been struggle many long years, and also social cohesions also have we tried in different ways as ourselves. We have engaged, and we start with the informal discussion and solidarity and some other thing that how we could support each other, and that. I would like to here mention two parts, target international community, and also target the local community or local stakeholder as well. So for the international community, I always think and reflect the advocacy that have done and also continue till today by our senior advocator and many different generations in the past. So then we talk about the same thing till today. So why international, especially UN, state member, UN Security Council, and UN agency, any mechanism of the UN didn't listen to us, and it didn't do effective action yet. So this is always, make me think that also I have a search and also study about the UN Charter. So they values the human rights, and they come the same command on the human rights values. So why they don't do nothing for the Burma that has many long years civil war in the war. And that also we have seen many different UN, like a special reporter and a UN mechanism like IIMM and other like human rights commission on Myanmar. So they also came out with a report and with a recommendation for the action on the UNSC and for the UN General Assembly and for the UN state members. So I want to echo the Special Rapporteur Thomas Andrew message again. So the military junta, they can sustain their SEM for three things: money, and that legitimacy, and the arms. So those things came from support from the international. So if I believe it international cut or not engage or not support further those things, I believe that they will broke down, and also they can move forward for offensive oppress the people in Burma. So we have so how many decades we have to advocate for these things. So even my generation now, and even my daughter or my young generation still need it. So it's come out from my mind to question the international community. So this is really important for the Burma to end military dictatorship and also to end impunity in Burma. So not only for the people in Burma, but also for all of us who relate, even in the many people they resented because of the military attack them, and they have to leave their house and they have to leave their hometowns. So there's a lot of people of Burma live across the country. They want to back to their hometown. They want to back their home country, but it's tended to be get better. But the situation in Burma getting worse. So this is what I would like to remind the international community to do then, to take effective action. So the second, very recently, we have saw the UN under the General Secretary for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator visits to the Burma and meet officially with the military junta. We have been advocates not to engage and not to legitimate the military junta because they have been committed war crimes and crimes against humanity and genocide. It committed the international law. It committed the international crimes. That international should take responsibility. It also international responsibility to take effective action. But when we see that, we feel so. It means that they admire the human rights activist, resistance movement, resistance group, and also the people that sacrifice their life for ending impunity, for ending dictatorship. So we feel very, disappointed on that. We also appoint last year's the special envoy that visits officially military junta. We already make at it, and also this time, so they made it again. So we come out with the common concern. So the Progressive Voice initiate and underside with the more than 500 civilians, civil society groups, including WLB, and then we concert, and also we urge the we call OCHA now. So to officially engage the partner with the legitimate stakeholders of Myanmar and civil society service provided to deliver the humanitarian assistance. So we believe that, and we always share our concern that if you are engaging for the humanitarian aid with the military junta, that will not reach to the people in need, and that will not reach to the people who impact on the fighting or need the humanitarian assistance. So as I mentioned already, so we still face those things, those difficulties, those challenges of the humanitarian assistance. So, but the other way that we see the responsibility of the UN mechanism or UN have made out very disappointed things for the resistant groups. The last part, we have seen the special reporter has come out with the report and with the very important recommendation. But till today, we didn't see they support and take action based on the report. And also we had very recently last year, resolution 2669, but there's nothing. So we don't want only they make only on the paper or statement or something. We want the action, effective action, and at the time to do the action as well. So this is for the international. So we always call for the imposition, embargo, and aviation fuel, or such as the think and also not engaging the military. We always call these things. Also, we will keep calling it as well till they do it. And then for the local, so as our brother sisters has survived of the Rohingya has survived, and also other ethnics as well. So the people of Myanmar right now, they have a common enemy. So the enemy is the military junta. So this is also one of the strike points that we can come out and strengthening our unity and for fight for adding to the military dictatorship. And also we also come out with the common vision of the establish the federal democratic unions. So these things also can make our changing of the system in the future. But the thing we need to recognize each other. The thing we need to open the space and welcome and come out with the inclusive platform for the changing the system of the Burmans. So there's so many people that they sympathy and they regret for themselves that they didn't know about the struggle and the surviving of the ethnics include Rohingya before. So they are now come up with the safety, and also they have more understanding on that. So I believe they will come out with the fully recognition and a fully action. Not only make up policy, not only make up call it on the statement or something that, but also fully recognize have a respect and cooperate and taking effective action. So this is for the local peoples to make at. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nasser, sir. I'm now just sort of looking at some of the audience questions, and there's a thread of questions around what we can do as an international community to both support resettlement for Rohingya refugees and how to address and support education in the camps. And I'm wondering if, Akila, you might be able to speak a little bit to the international community role in ensuring refugee protections for Rohingya. And perhaps then I can ask Tun Kin to share a little bit more about the education needs around camps in Bangladesh. Thanks, Akila.
Sure, thank you. And this is not my area of expertise, but I'm happy to kind of share. I mean, I think that what we've heard from both Tunkin and Sursur is the community knows exactly what they need, and they've been very specifically asking for it. And I think that what we have is a failure of the international community to, one, listen and internalize, and two, really think beyond what what they continue to say is impossible to make these things a reality, right? So what can they do? How can they exert additional pressure on humanitarian aid? For example, what we've seen a lot of the international community do is hide behind ASEAN, right? And this has happened a lot, actually, more generally in the response to Myanmar. And they've said that ASEAN is in the lead. And for example, a lot of states are providing their humanitarian funding through the AHA Center, who human rights organizations in Myanmar and others have long highlighted that they do not have the capacity to meet humanitarian needs, to actually be able to deliver on the ground. The organization itself was set up just in face of natural disasters. They have to cooperate with the junta. There are a range of barriers, right? And yet the international community continues to funnel their funding through there, instead of listening, for example, to the long call of a lot of ethnic groups to support cross-border aid, right? Saying that trust the local CSOs, we have the trust of the community, we know how to do this. Give us the flexible funding, give us the ability to deliver the aid for our own communities. And that ask has yet to be internalized, processed, and responded to. And so I think these are the types of things that we really want to be thinking about as it looks at what does it mean to deliver humanitarian aid. Earlier on in the event, Tunkin highlighted the consequences of Cyclone Mocha. And we saw the military impose really severe restrictions on the provision of humanitarian aid in Rakhine State, where we saw some of the most severe consequences of Cyclone Mocha. And that, again, was a failure of the international community to try to go through the normal channels of who has access to the state in order to be able to provide aid. So I think those are some of the things I'd like to highlight here, is that whether it's on humanitarian aid, whether it's on justice and accountability, whether it's on arms, the community of activists in Myanmar have been explicit and clear on what it's going to take and what they need support with. And what we continue to see is a sort of, middling response from the international community that shows a lack of imagination. For example, what has been possible in Ukraine has always been said it's impossible in Myanmar, right? And that is a lack of political will, that is a lack of imagination. And I think that's the turn that we need to see, is how do you listen to the community, and how do you then mobilize and make operational these asks? Every small thing, from holding just one open Security Council meeting on Myanmar, has been deemed impossible, right? So how are you supposed to support these immense needs when states can't even put their political will behind, even the smallest of asks from the community, let alone the largest of asks from the community? So I think that's the shift that we need to see as we look at the fact that we're 6 years from the Rohingya genocide, and we see the Rohingya in a situation of further fragility, whether they're in Bangladesh or whether they remain in Myanmar. And that should be a rallying cry for the international community to do so much better and really think about what it takes to support the communities and what they're asking for.
Thank you so much, Akila. And I hope that folks who are on this call and listening understand the point around focusing humanitarian funding and financial support to cross-border aid, which is happening on the ground with civil society groups. And for funders on this call, that's a call to action. And you can be in touch with anyone on this call if you would like to have introductions to civil society groups organizing that cross-border aid, because we have those connections and there is a need and you can fulfill it. I'm going to just pass us on to Tunkin to speak a little bit about the issue around education in the camps, and support for Rohingya in Bangladesh.
Thank you for it. A good question. That's also, I talk about it just, how important it is. When we talk about Rohingya genocide survivors, 40% are children and women. So a community growing without education. How many years? 6 years now. How many years need to be more without education? What can happen with these young people? They can be used by human traffickers, smugglers, or whatever way. Many different ways they can be used. Because can you imagine 40% are children and women in the camp? So education, important thing is, unfortunately, Bangladesh, important thing is we should have proper school. Bangladesh government is not allowing it. What they saying it's going to be a pull factor. I don't understand. There is much more refugee will come to the camp. Almost Rohingya, 90% population already left out of the country. So what can be more full factor? I can't see that. And international community should focus more on education, because this is going to be a regional problem. And if these young people may use different ways, there's going to be a big problem for the community. And human traffickers are using them by boat, taken to the Thailand, Malaysia, and others. And when your children cannot get education, cannot get proper medical treatment, if you are in open barbed wire, what you will do? You have to leave from the camp. That is the end. That's why people are taking risks, taken by boat, and from high sea they travel into Thailand, Malaysia, and others. So we want to focus on here EU, UK, and US. Particularly US have mentioned genocide, already declared genocide declaration. When you declare genocide declaration, it is important to act, responsibility to act and protect the survivors. But they are not protecting them. They are not supporting, that education and others. And Bangladesh should be persuaded or pressurized different way. It's important to get this education. My point is, I was lucky to be educated in Rakhine State until my age was 17. And then I couldn't go to university because of some health family through, I was able to study here in London. So like me, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya, after 10 years, 15 years, we may not see anyone from advocate, from Rohingya camp, because they are not getting education. So through a scholarship, we are calling to educate them, to give a scholarship, UK, US and EU countries. And before they are O-level, proper school need to be built up. International community can support it if they really want to, because we can't see willingness there. Many governments talk a lot about this, but there is no action. That's what we are continuously facing. So that is the only way we could do. Build up education, a school in a camp, provide scholarships, and through other international, INGOs and others, support them for education funding. Those are the ways could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Tunkin. Well, I think you've all given us a lot to think about as we process some of the recommendations you shared, and we really think about the joint struggle and steps that we each can take using our privilege and power and where we're based to put pressure on the dynamic situation. So thank you again for your time. I'm going to pass it back to Myra to conclude us and close us out. We appreciate all of you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And of course, especially to our speakers, thank you so much for sharing your insightful thought and experience and expertise. There is so much to talk about when it comes to Burma, even education that Gotunkin talked about earlier. I do want to emphasize that children in the refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, they have no access to education, literally. And for them to be able to go to school, the community leaders have to create their own way of little schools for in different parts of the camp so that children get to go to school. So basically, there is no right. Even those little schools, the Bangladesh government still wanted to shut it down. So if we have any funders over here, or if any funders come across to watch our event today, I just wanted to emphasize that your help is greatly needed. And especially when you do funding, please do it for generous support instead of putting in all kinds of administrative burden, because the need is greater than what we expect. And a lot of times we get to hear from different people. And with that, I just wanted to say that as our event come to close, let us remember those who lost in the 2017 genocide, the Rohingya genocide, but also at the same time, let us remember those who have to suffer at the hands of the military junta for decades, depending on which ethnic group you talk to. If you talk about my ethnic group, Karen, at least 7 decades. And our people from Burma are still suffering on a daily basis. So your support in any way possible, whether through advocacy, amplify the voices of the people on the ground, is very important. And I do wanted to urge all of us to stand in solidarity and trying to making sure that we raise the voices, the concern of the people who are suffering in Burma and the Rohingya community at different parts of the world, especially right now, those in Bangladesh refugee camp, which is the largest refugee camp. I think for me, the largest refugee camp in the world, and also in many other countries. I also wanted to remind and also let our viewers know that we also have the ongoing series of events. We title is it's the power of inclusion, which now we'll be having it in September, and it'll be focusing on Karen and Mon State, the refugees and the IDP situation in those 2 states. And it is as a series. So basically you can also, if you wanted to watch, you can also go back to the past series. But for the coming September, it'll be focusing on Karen and Mon. And with that, I wanted to say thank you so much again. And I wish you all the very best. Have a good day and good night. That is all for the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.